job at the American Society of Clinical Oncology focuses primarily on our patient website, cancer.net. We call cancer.net the voice of the world's cancer doctors. We're bringing the voice of the world's cancer doctors to patients. The main visitors to our site are patients who've been diagnosed with cancer or their friends, their family, or caregivers. Cancer is a complex topic, and because patients are coming to our site at an extremely confusing time, they may be distraught, overwhelmed. So it's extremely important for us to provide them with the information that they need in a clear and simple manner, so we are not making this time more stressful for them. There's a lot to take in and a lot to learn, and people only have so much bandwidth, as they may say, to take that in at such a time. And one of the challenges we have is we provide a lot of information. We have hundreds of articles on our site, and we have internal staff who work on them. We also have external freelance writers who work on our content as well. And because cancer moves at such a fast pace in research, we need to update that content regularly. You know, it's not a blog where we just put stuff up and then let it languish. We have information about tests and procedures, types of treatments, specific cancers. This needs to be updated regularly. So what steps do we take to make this information clear? One thing we do that many organizations do is have a specific style guide, a tone, a voice that we're trying to do. But when you're working with multiple writers, especially some that are external, we can't depend on everyone to be an expert in our tone and our voice. Using a style guide, it's still dependent on people reading it and people knowing it. When you have freelance writers who are working on multiple projects, I don't expect them to be able to remember everyone's style guide for all of the projects they work on. Even though they may reference it when they're reading through, it's not the same as me reading through where I see a word and say that word shouldn't be here. So one of the things that we have been using is Clarity Grader to guide our editing and also to quality check it. Because one of the things we have people ask us about when they come to our site, and people who are professionals, they want to know what the reading level is of our site. And as I mentioned, we have a lot of content, and cancer is a complex subject. So with a lot of simple ways to measure a reading level, a reading grade, the simple methods don't fit because they're using such complex terms that it throws the grade a lot higher than necessarily the whole article. And then with more complex methods, we just have too much content for us to be able to use that on every single article. So this is where we use Clarity Grader. And when we started out, what really appealed to us was choose your words wisely, because there are a lot of terms that we don't use, and we try to be very cautious about how we speak about cancer, so we're not confusing people or making them feel like they are their cancer. This is something that's happened to them. It's not something that they are responsible for, and it's really important that our words communicate that. So when we started using Clarity Grader, we did a test edit. And so here are 3 tests. I'll tell you what they are, and then you're welcome to guess which they are. So we did a before test using analyzing an article from our site. And then we used a test version that a human edited, a regular human, keeping in mind the concepts of readability, eliminating passive voice, using shorter sentences, using smaller words, more simple words. And then we had someone do an edit based on the report given to us from Clarity Grader. So does anyone want to offer your guesses? It's pretty easy.
Guess so.
Yeah?
A
A guess on which one is which of those 3? The human, the original?
Top is the original?
That's correct, yep. So there's the original. Here's the human edit. And there's the Clarity Grader edit. So one of the things you might notice here is that actually after the Clarity Grader edit, we acquired an extra sentence, an extra long sentence. We went from 2 long sentences to 3 sentences. This is just the nature of my work. all of the content on our site is reviewed by medical professionals, and they need to add the latest information. So I expect that long sentence was some new change in treatment or diagnosis that made it into that we couldn't really do away with. But everything else improved. Although we added one more long sentence, our the average sentence length went down, as did passive language, and our readability improved just a little bit. But after that test edit, it was enough for us to say, this is really great. This is something we want to go forward with. So we started implementing this into our process in 2015, so it's last year, with a particular segment of our content. This is the content that's not specific cancer types, but kind of covers the prevention, the diagnosis, treatment, after treatment stage we call survivorship. And so I'm going to walk you through a little bit about how we've incorporated this into our editorial process. Okay, so obviously we need to start with analyzing our content. And since we've been using it since 2015, this kind of goes in two different ways now that we're a year later. We start out, if we haven't analyzed it before, with a new analysis. And one of my favorite things I like is the little applet that you can get. So I don't even need to log into the dashboard, which is convenient for me because I go on our site a lot, and I'm on our site, and I can just say, oh, this is time for an update. Let's click on the applet and see what we have. So now in 2016, with some of our articles, we've already done this. So we just pull the previous analysis. We do this at 2 stages, which you'll learn about the final stage when I get to it. But to pull the previous analysis, we just go and pull it out from the record where everything is stored. Then after we've analyzed the content, we assign it to the writer or editor. As I've mentioned before, we use freelance writers as well as internal writers. So this may go to a freelancer, this may go to someone internal. And something that Clarity Grader has allowed us to do is at times skip this process for a preliminary edit. It goes to the writer for a preliminary edit of readability. And what I give them is the article and the report. And the report I'm talking about is on the Clear Language tab. I give them this PDF report. And the reason why is because it lists everything, the long sentences, the passive voice, it underlines complicated words. It provides them with what they need to get started. And while we were testing this, one of the things I had been working with a lot of our freelance writers for a while, and this was new to them, so it was something I needed to explain when I sent it. And after I'd been sending it for a while, I asked them, do you want me to continue to send these? And they said, yes, we like these. They help us do our editing. And I appreciate that very much. So after we assign it to the writer, it goes through a variety of our own internal processes. You don't really need to know very much about this. We do our internal review. We send it to our medical editors. And then finally, it's ready for posting, and we put it up on cancer.net. And then once it's posted, we do the final analysis and documentation. This is where I mentioned you would hear about this again. And this is our final quality check. And we started using this because we wanted to see how we were improving. I personally love data, and I'm really interested in processes that improve things. And I love having a way to actually measure improvement. So what we do is we store the report, and then we record the grade. So the reason we record the grade is, as I mentioned before, we have people ask us what our grade is. So this way we have a record of what the average grade of our materials is. And it's a metric that people understand and easily compare, and because it's something that people target towards. And then, of course, the last step in the process is going back to the beginning, where we start over a new year, a new batch of 100 to 200 articles. And I want to share with you a little bit of our results. So here's our change from before 2015. That's not good, I admit. Grade 10, 27%, grade 11, 29%, grade 12 and above, 12%. Grade 8 is only 10%, grade 8 and below. So after using Clarity Grader, I think for almost a year, we lowered the percentage of articles measuring at grade 11 plus and increased the percentage of articles measuring at grade 8 and below. And here's what we have as of 2015. I haven't done my 2016 analysis yet, and I'm hoping we've improved. So now currently we have more than half at grade 8 and below, and none at grade 12. And you can see there's still work to be done, and there are some things that we may never be able to get at grade 8 and below because of the length and complexity of the words we're using. For some reason, we have an article on rehabilitation, which I can never get the grade much lower because the word rehabilitation itself is a huge word, and there's not a lot of ways to say that differently. And patients need to know these terms. These are terms they're going to hear from their doctor. We provide the terms, we provide a definition, but we can't get rid of the word. And so what I like about Clarity Grader is it gives us those other factors to look at. So if I look at something and say, well, this is a grade 9 or a grade 10, but we have very little passive voice, we have very short sentences, I'm okay with that. I always try to do better, but sometimes it just may not happen. And one of my favorite parts about doing this is that we get a lot of response from people who come to our site. And I want to read a couple of them, and then I want to show you some specific examples. So here's some feedback from real users who come to cancer.net. This is my first time visiting the site, and I was impressed with the information and how well it is written for the person who has little experience with the topic. Next one. I love the way the different types of cancers are explained thoroughly in layman's terms. I had some questions, and the first page I looked at had specific and understandable explanations. Thank you. Your website is great. I found so much helpful and useful information. It's well written and easily understandable. Thank you very much. These are just comments we've gotten in this past 2 years, year and a half that we've been using Clarity Grader. And I love the team I work with, and I think we're all really great workers and sensitive to people's needs. But I think in part, our ability to present this information clearly has been due to Clarity Grader in some respects, and I really appreciate that and how well it helps us do our work. And the specific responses I want to share with you. This is one about a PET-CT article. That's 2 tests. It's a test that people might get for cancer. Thanks for this clearly written presentation about PET-CT scans. So what I want to show you is what this article looked like before we received this comment. And this is what it looked like, the version that this comment was about. And now my next example is not as fantastic, and it clearly has a clear message for me and my work. Thank you for providing the information I was looking for about my upcoming colonoscopy. The information was easy to read and understand. So this was the before version of the article. This was the version that this person was commenting on. And as you can see, it's improved, but not as much as the other article. So to me, what this means is our work is not done. And this article is currently in review right now. We're working on it, and I hope that we will see it much more improved and help more people with the clearly written information. So my presentation is short, so I'll make up all your extra time for you, but I would like to see if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, are you able to correlate the data with increased page time views or increased traffic on your website? Or I'm also thinking about all of the reviews and responses and emails that you've gotten. Are you able to do like word cloud analysis on well-written or easy to understand to show further proof with data?
Sure. We have haven't done any specific analysis like that. This is just an eyeball pulling together comments that we get, and these are just some of the comments that we had that talked about well-written and understandable. One of the things that may be challenging for us is correlating this with an increased page views, because, I'm a website, and I understand, websites are always looking for people to, spend time, valuable time on their site, and to have more visitors. And we're lucky, in some respects, is that people are always coming to our site. Our numbers have increased, and the time on our site has increased as well. So because that keeps happening consistently year after year, I'm not sure we would be able to do an actual comparison of why that's happening, because with not having no, it's not a good thing with cancer wise. It's for the website. Yes.
The best thing would be for you to be out of business.
Yes, of course the best thing for me would be to be out of business. But from my perspective, I know what cancer is like. I know that unfortunately, it exists, and people need well-written information, and they need accurate information. The internet can be a scary place if you have any sort of disease or condition, because there is a lot of information out there, and not all of it is reliable or true. And I know that our site is, because it's reviewed by medical professionals, oncologists who treat actual patients. So from my perspective, yes, of course I don't want anyone to have cancer, but if they're going to have to find information, I want them to be able to find information they understand, and that's the value of our website.
Do you use VisibleThread for docs in your process?
We don't actually use VisibleThread for docs. We did do a test with it, but we've actually been moving away from a document-based review and update system, so it's not as helpful for us as the web version.
What do your editors write? What do they write their content?
Okay, so right now we do have documents. We're moving to an online-based review system where it's kind of an application that they go in and comment directly. Mm-hmm. Yes?
And this might be for you, Fergal. We don't use Clarity Grader, but we use it for docs. Have you done any analyses by industry? For example, from a readability point of view, we're in a very technical industry, and as much as 8th grade may be a goal, and actually you kind of shattered some of the myths with your presentation, I tend to say to writers who are preparing proposals is, our industry is so technical, maybe 12th grade is your goal. Have you done any studies by industry as to what that goal should be?
Well, I can comment. Yes, the goal does vary. I can give you some suggestions that we use, because cancer is a complex topic. We have words that are non-negotiable we have to include. So what we do is go after sort of the low-hanging fruit, the non-negotiable words, like usually, particularly, words that aren't necessary to the meaning and can be switched out for a simpler word. And it takes a little bit of finesse, I think, with editing to keep the complex terms that you need while trying to reduce the reading level. But as far as best practices outside with complex terms, I'm not sure. It may be something that you need to decide for your own organization, doing a review of your content and seeing, doing your best to edit it down and seeing where you fall, and maybe you have you can kind of create your own target. But
so I'll answer Ray's question in a moment, but I'm just curious, are you using dictionaries to scrub the bad language, or do you
we do have a dictionary to scrub the bad language. We have not used it that much, and I think the reason why is because we always have at least a staff person editing it once or twice in the process, and I've been there for 9 years. I'm often the staff person to do this, so I know the bad language off the top of my head. So it's something we have. I don't think we fully utilized it, but as we have people come on board and take different roles, it's probably something that will be more useful. And this year we're actually working on updating our style guide, and I actually have been turning to the bad language dictionary to kind of add to what we currently have.
Let me just answer Barry's other part of the question, which was just like, Hello? So the question is a very valid one, and Lindsay actually touched on it. If you look at the stats here, don't conflate all of those four boxes together. So the readability and the reading ease, so the flesh concave measure, which is the third on the, sorry, actually on this one, actually, sorry, the last one on the right is just the readability, right? It's the number between 0 and 100. The higher you go up, the better it is. The closer to 100, now it's impossible to get 100, it would be gibberish, it's one syllable word. It's a algorithm based on number of syllables per word, and that's the heavier weighting of the two contributors, and length of sentence. But the syllable per word can really skew it. So back to Barry's question. If you're dealing with medicine, myocardial infarction, heart attack, you can't restate that if you've got a medical audience. And similarly, in the world of cancer, you can't restate certain types of cancer. There's always going to be the case. But to Lindsay's point, you can certainly remove, my favorite one is, please make an application, which is perfectly valid English, but it's quite, application is multisyllabic. Change it to please apply. And oddly enough, please make an application is hiding the verb apply in the noun application, so it's called a nominalization or hidden verb. So you can reorient the text to be a little punchier and sharper and to the point so that you don't imply or impose a cognitive burden on the reader. So sometimes the other fallacy that I see a lot is people say, well, we can't dumb it down, quote unquote. Yeah, there are restrictions on what you can and cannot do. You need to, if you're in defense and aerospace, you need to talk about certain technical terms, no doubt. But dumbing it down, if I want to make the understandability better, I have optionality on the non-tech words. I can chop my sentence length and make a multi-clausal 3-clause sentence of 50 words much easier to digest, because that multi-clausal sentence, A, is going to be impossible to read. By the time you get to the end, you've forgotten what the start was about. And think about it from let's go back to the contract space. Let's say I've got to deliver the program on that contract and I won the award. That's going to be in the requirements. So you've got this multi-clausal, I'll say a bullshit sentence, that's full of stuff that's passive, non-attributable. I don't know who's going to do what, when, and where. So actually downstream, we did that procurement analysis on section L and N, which are the requirements really, and the silencing and working various other bits and pieces. It was riddled with that stuff. So it's not just the interaction between you and the government as a contractor, it's also the delivery cycle downstream. When it comes to actually building up the program for that award, there's going to be a lot of variability and probably a lot of missed deadlines and a lot of time and cost down. So it's both pre-award and post-award in terms of that process. I know that's miles away from this particular analysis, but it's the same thing. Effective, the post-award version in Lindsay's word is somebody being confused and not finding the answer to the question they need. And the conversion actually becomes then somebody getting on a phone and trying to seek guidance elsewhere, which at a time is such a sensitive time for these guys, it's a crazy thing. So we care about that stuff, and it's an utterly different world from the world of contracting, but it's really interesting to see Lindsay's use case because it's the same principle, really. It's essentially the same thing. Pre-award, post-award, engagement, non-engagement. Back to the final bit of that, and sorry, Kevin, can you measure it? We have some customers we kind of lump this into the kind of marketing space. It's probably a bad way to categorize it. We need to do some thinking on that. But you can actually join up your churn statistics. Anybody who's using Google Analytics for web engagement, you can marry those and cross-reference those with the results you get by page here and form a view as to whether you're engaging and converting customers and getting them down the user journey to a point where they will actually take the action you want them to take. Because people come to websites to find out answers or to do a task. That's what they do. And they're skimming. They're skimming really fast. And the average attention span, as Josh said, 37 seconds. So you've got to get it punchy to the point, and in the world of marketing, that's really, really key.
Yeah, I would say the world of everything. When you're trying to give information to people, you're trying to give them information and you want them to read it and understand it. And I've heard, and I wish I had actual statistics here with me, but that people prefer to read at a lower level than they are capable of. And that applies to everything, not just when you're been diagnosed with cancer, but when you're reading contracts as well.
Can you share, did you change the default statistics for the readability scores?
No.
So you went with just a straight default?
Yes.
That's something that we have played with,
Mhm.
rig that,
Mhm.
rig it for our language, our speak, is to be able to change some of the statistics,
Mhm.
how it actually scores.
Mhm. No, we haven't done that.
Okay.
Anything else? Yes.
So you do the scan when you send an assignment,
Mhm.
and then not again until it's published.
That's correct.
So if you were assigning original pieces, would you do that? Would you change that, for instance, like when it comes back from the writer,
Mhm.
after the SME review, something like that?
Mhm. No, if we're doing something original, then we would not be analyzing it until it goes up on the site. If it's terrible, we have the option to go back and do some re-editing. I would not say that's happened very often. That was one of the reasons we tried the VT docs, was because we wanted to be able to put it in the system different. But moving towards kind of an all web-based review system, that may not be an option, and maybe something that I don't know if you have the availability of. But it would be helpful for us if we could use that within our CMS or the review system we're using, so we can use the web-based applet on content that we're currently reviewing. That would be really great. If I had a wish list.
And actually, just in that particular use case, what Lindsay is referring to when she talks about the applet, technically,
Oh, it's okay.
It's a bookmarklet.
Okay.
That's kind of mumbo jumbo. It just means that it sits in a browser. This is a piece of JavaScript code that sits at the bottom in the browser in your bookmarks. And when you go to any page at all, you can click on it, and it'll push the content from that page so that it's analyzed within VisibleThread Web in a calculator, and it shows up directly there. So we've seen this pattern a lot. The Irish Taxation Authority, Internal Revenue for us, the equivalent to the IRS here, is using that all the time. It's a real surprise package for us. We originally developed it for Autodesk, in fact, who's a customer, and in fact, it supports AEM, which is the Adobe platform. AEM stands for Adobe Experience Platform, which is a content management system. So it strips out all of the tagging stuff that they will put into a web page that they publish. But let's talk for sure about getting that more seamlessly in there. I didn't really talk much about our API work, but certainly supporting the more immediate press the button in the context where you're at, i.e. the content management system, and pushing that and getting the result back is exactly what the API does for us. The only thing is that we need to work with partners to facilitate that in the CMS.
Yeah, of course. Anything else? All right, great. Thank you very much for letting me speak to you.